Hello everyone. Securing your Linux server is important to protect your data from the hands of the hackers. The system administrator is responsible for security of the Linux box. So this video includes a collection of commands and best practices that you can use to improve the security of your Linux servers. Here is a checklist of the steps which are required to secure the Linux servers. The basic and the first step to secure the Linux server is to apply the latest security updates to your server. Here are some commands which are useful to update all packages. Linux distributions receive frequent security updates. Make sure your server is configured to check and install unattended updates automatically. Okay, the next step is to enable the secure shell protocol, or SSH in short, and also change its port to a different one so that it enables you to make a secure connection to your network services over an unsecure network. Okay, here is the command to install the OpenSSH. Okay, once it is installed, you have to open the configuration file through an editor and then make changes to the default port. Here is the path where the configuration file is stored. Here you have to find the port. The default one is a 22. You have to make changes to this port, like I've added double to a port, and you have to save the file. Our service is restarted and port is changed. The root user is available in most Linux servers by default, and hackers often try to get a login as root by guessing its password. Therefore, it's recommended to disable the root account. First, ensure that you have an admin user account so that you can execute the root level commands. Later, with the sudo special privileges access command, then you can safely disable the root login. Okay, here is the file which you have to edit at this path. Now you have to sort out permit root login. By default, its value is set to yes, but you have to change it to no. Also, you can disable the password authentication in favor of a secure method like SSH private or public private key authentication. For that, you have to find out the password authentication. By default, its value is set to yes. For this, to disable it, you have to set its value to no. Then save the file. Restart the SSH service. Okay, the next step is to enable firewall and IPtables. On CentOS and other Red Hat variants, IPtables often comes with some pre-configured rules. You can check the current IPtable rules using the following command. This will print out a list of 3 chains: input, forward, and output. These chain names indicate which traffic the rules in which list will be applied to. Input is for any connections coming to your cloud server. Output is any leaving traffic, and forward for any pass-through. Each chain also has its policy setting, which determines how the traffic is handled. If it doesn't match any specific rules, by default is set to accept. Firewall is installed by default on some Linux distributions, including many images of CentOS. However, it may be necessary for you to install Firewall yourself. Here's the command to install Firewall. If it is already installed, then you can check the status of its firewall on your Linux server through this command. It is showing as inactive, so that means it is stopped. After you install Firewall, you can enable the service and reboot your server. Keep in mind that enabling Firewall will cause the service to start up at boot. It is best practice to create your firewall rules and take the opportunity to test them before configuring this behavior in order to avoid potential issues. Here's the command to enable Firewall and to start the firewall services on your Linux server. Now Firewall is enabled, and now we're going to start it. Later on, you can also check the status of your firewall through this command. The next step is to enable SELinux. Security Enhanced Linux, or SELinux for short, is a built-in access control mechanism for systems connected to the internet and accessed by public users. Disabling SELinux can be catastrophic for your servers. You can get the status of your SELinux through this command. Right now, the current mode is permissive. SELinux operates in the following 3 modes: disabled, permissive, and enforcing. SELinux in disabled mode is completely off. You should avoid this mode at all times. In permissive mode, SELinux doesn't enforce any policy, but logs and audits all actions. This can be used while configuring the machine and installing the services to ensure all services are running, but you should switch to enforcing as soon as configuration is done, because the enforcing mode is most secure and enforces all policies. This is the default mode of SELinux and is also recommended mode. You can get through this command. Right now it is permissive, so you have to change it to enforcing, and it can be done through this command. To confirm, you can get status again. Now the current mode is enforcing. Complex and stronger passwords are necessary to secure the Linux servers. The recommended approach is to disable all those accounts which are with empty passwords and ask users to set passwords for their accounts. You can also disable the root account as told you earlier, and use the sudo as it provides better auditing and control. Once the new user is added, then it can be made a sudo user through this command. Make sure you always set the complex password for this task. Once the password is changed, then you can make it a sudo user through this command. Operating systems often come preloaded with software and services that run constantly in the background without notice. To enhance the security of your servers, list all packages and softwares installed on your servers and keep only the necessary packages and clean up the rest. Use the following commands. This command will list all the installed packages, and through this command you can remove any package which is not required. You can use yum remove and give any package name. Security vulnerabilities in such software can lead to compromised servers, so make it a practice to uninstall unnecessary programs. To avoid typing password each time logging into the server, set up a SSH key. SSH key is a more secure and easier method of accessing a remote server. Instead of typing a password, we generate public and private keys. The public key is transferred to the server while the private key remains on your local computer. Here's a command to generate the SSH key. It will ask the user to provide the path to store the key. By default, it will save the key file at this path. To use a default path, you just hit enter. Next, enter the passphrase. If somebody compromises your private key, the passphrase will prevent unauthorized users from accessing the server. If you want to skip passphrase, hit enter. Without typing passphrase through, though it is a less secure. Next, you can upload the public key to the server by using this command. You can give username at its IP address. Replace the username with your server's name and IP address with your server's IP address. If you change the default SSH port, use -P option with the port number to connect to the SSH port. If the IP address is correct, it will ask to enter the user password. It will copy the public key to the server and ask for user password last time. Enter the password again and that's it. You have set up an SSH key to log into the server. Okay, the next step is to turn off the IP version 6. If your network applications are not using IP version 6 protocol, then disable it to decrease the attack surface. You can do this by editing the file which is located at this path. Network card may be different, so you can use your network card name. There you have to find IP version 6 in it. Right now the value is yes, which you have to change it to no. And now it is disabled. After changing the IP version 6 status, you have to either restart the network service or reboot the server.